Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and I want to talk to you today about some of the potential risks of taking natural laxatives. You know, research has shown that about 26% of the American population have trouble eliminating. And one evaluation, one meta-analysis over 250 different studies showed that there were no long-term benefits from the use of any laxatives. The bottom line means that these laxatives stop working. The body builds a tolerance to these laxatives. So I want to talk about that and how that works. You know, most of the laxatives work by sort of stimulating the body to eliminate, but never really addressing the underlying reason as to why we're not moving our bowels in a regular fashion. So let's talk about some of the laxatives that we classically use. I mean, some of them are stimulant in nature: caffeine, coffee, tea, senna, cascara sagrada, classic laxatives found in most of the herbal laxatives. They irritate the intestinal tract, and the intestinal tract goes, oh my gosh, I better go. And you contract and you move your bowels and you have better elimination, which can work for a while, but over time the intestinal villi become desensitized to the stimulation of that laxative, and eventually you need more and more of the senna, more and more of the coffee, more and more of the herbal laxative to get you to have that same effect. So again, just like the study showed, the body begins to build a tolerance to that laxative, and you begin to need more and more of it, or begin to maybe try adding on another type of laxative, maybe like a bulking laxative, like psyllium or bran or cellulose, which is in a lot of the foods that we eat today, just as fillers. The cellulose from wood pulp is in lots of the foods we eat. It's a filler, it's healthy, it's bran, has no downside, but no nutritional value really to speak of. But what these bulking agents do is they attract water. If you ever put psyllium in a glass of water and stirred it, you'd notice that very quickly all the water would be attracted to the psyllium, and the psyllium would get very thick. Well, that's exactly what happens inside your intestinal tract. The psyllium starts to pull water off your intestinal tract. And the more water you get into your intestinal tract, the better you're going to go. It's going to help you have a better bowel movement, because usually the intestinal tract becomes sort of dry. But so the more water you pull, the better you go. But also that psyllium starts to expand, and it starts to expand into the gut wall, and it can distend the gut wall. Then when the gut feels that pressure, it goes, uh-oh, I better go. And all of a sudden you have these, this urge to go, and these really great, large, fiber-rich bowel movements that you think are really healthy. And they are for the most part, except for over time, you can begin to dehydrate the bowel, and you can begin to distend the intestinal tract. And that's an issue you have to watch out for over the long term when you use these laxatives long term. You know, one of the classic herbal laxatives that we use that we think is just completely safe is magnesium. It's a mineral, and it's very true. The vast majority of folks, in the West are probably deficient in magnesium. And a certain amount of magnesium can be very valuable for your heart, for your muscular health, lots of good things it supports. But a little bit more can start to, again, pull water off the intestinal tract. And over time, studies have shown that with these herbs like bulking agents and magnesium, it can actually pull the water off the gut wall, dehydrate the bowel, make you more chronically constipated, but the worst part is it can demineralize the body. Now, I talked a lot about minerals. Getting the adequate minerals in your system is hard enough. We don't want to take an herbal laxative that slowly dehydrates us, pulls water off the bowels to go regularly, and then have ourselves stuck with a mineral deficiency that leaves the intestinal wall, the muscles of your intestinal wall, compromised and unable to function. So be aware of even the most natural of natural laxatives like magnesium. It can be great at smaller levels. It can be great for short-term use. I support it 100%. But boy, if you're using it a lot over a long period of time, we have to be careful of making sure you're not demineralizing or dehydrating your bowel or creating a long-term drying out of the intestinal tract. So these are some of the things to think about when you do that. And one of the ways that you can also tell is there's a condition we call gastrointestinal hurry, which means when you take a laxative and you sort of hurry it up and get everything moving a lot quicker. I know some of you probably love that, but it's an indicator that you're taking a little bit too much and things are moving through too fast and not absorbing the way it should. So if you have gastrointestinal hurry, you're going to see if you take, for example, some beets, and then if that is actually seen in your stool anything sooner than 12 hours, then you see that in the toilet, then you are probably looking at possibly what's called gastrointestinal hurry, which means that the gut is moving things through too fast, or you're not absorbing it as efficiently as you can. So you want to watch out for that. Another side effect of some of the natural laxatives that we think are all good. Senna tea, we think, how bad can that be? Well, it's absolutely a bowel irritant. It's absolutely going to create a dependency, and the body will build a tolerance, and you'll need to take more and more and more of that. And we just don't want to go down that road. From the Ayurvedic perspective, there's lots of theories there. One theory is that, your liver makes bile, and the bile in your liver is actually what controls and regulates your stool. So we look at liver function. One of the best herbs that supports healthy liver function and tonifies the bowel and sort of supports the skin of the intestinal wall is an herb called Triphala. 3 Ayurvedic fruits: amalaki to support the health of the skin of the intestinal wall, bibitaki to help pull the mucus off the intestinal wall, and haritaki to tone the bowel. Really great herbs, and herbs can be great to use to support healthy function of the intestinal tract. Sometimes folks have such stress in their lives that we call it vata, the drying out effect of your intestinal tract takes place. So you need to lubricate that. And taking some slippery elm, marshmallow root, or licorice root tea along with your Triphala can be a great strategy to help get the best of both worlds. Looking at that, we have a formula called the Slippery Elm Tea Formula. You can read about some of the benefits of that. We also have a formula called Elim number 1, which is a formula with Triphala and slippery elm and licorice in it to support the lubrication and the benefits along those lines. But if you have some chronic eliminative issues and Triphala isn't sort of doing it for you, consider adding some licorice or some marshmallow root or some slippery elm to it to help get that lubricating effect that will heal and reestablish a healthy function of the intestinal mucosa. And then hydration, rehydration is critically important. One of my favorite rehydration techniques is to take 2 weeks and sip hot water throughout the day, every 10 to 15, 20 minutes throughout the day, little sips here, little sip there throughout the day to super rehydrate the bowel, while you're also drinking 8 big, large glasses of water per day to create a kind of a very effective river of water moving through your system while you have the hot water to open and vasodilate and create hydration benefits. So that's really important, is to pay back the dehydration debt, which is a very common problem as well. So those are some thoughts. I've written a pretty comprehensive article going into each of these natural laxatives, the pros and the cons. Please take a look at that. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.